all of these different data formats that people who are trying to break into the market have to figure out and have to get their hands on. And if we can say, no, 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 here's the visualization layer, you either visualize data in a new way or you contribute something new into the ecosystem, it kind of breaks that problem up and it gives everyone a common language to speak. And then you don't have to do both the providing of the data and the visualization. You can say, hey, I'm a really good AI company and I have lots of really good data. I don't have graphic designers or UI UX people. I don't have a fantastically intuitive interface, but I can push data into this ecosystem, and there's already 20 different ways to visualize it the customer can pick from.
Just sort of as you guys are, on your corporate journey, right? And you're changing the way the government thinks about its data and its ability to interact with large platforms and large volumes of data and sort of outside parties. What are you guys working on right now? Like, what's got you guys excited? How are you thinking about sort of the future of the capability and what lies ahead?
Yeah, I think Wargo and I'll have the same answer. We just came out with version 6 of our Buse Core software, and it's completely modular. Before that, it was like one product where if you wanted to customize it or add your own integration, we would be forking the source code and having to add that capability. And that becomes like super unsustainable in the future. There's a lot of products that we see where they've been customized for each individual organization. And over time, you can't maintain all those different builds. And then it becomes really hard to be able to push upgrades to it as well. So with the new paradigm, we can go to an organization, we can give them the out of the box capabilities that probably solve 85% of what we're really good at. But then we can add in the different caveats, or like the government could do that too. They could decide that they want a different organization to build those plugins, or maybe they want to build it themselves through like a software factory, and they can decide that they want to maintain them.
How are you seeing, when you bring in sort of A, cleaner delivery method for you guys sort of internally, B, I think a way better sort of engagement sort of process for that government customer. Are you guys seeing sort of excitement around that? What's been the feedback so far?
I think there's a lot of excitement. The other thing that we're really focused on is partnerships. So working with other large organizations who are going after all the big contracts, or maybe they have those contract vehicles already, but they don't have the technology piece. So we just got a strategic partnership with a company called Amentum. They have 44,000 employees.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. So they're looking at it of, we can take this technology and it makes it a differentiator within our different contracts. And so we're building these growth partners, but also teaming with other technology companies that can enrich our offering. So again, we're really good at the data visualization and aggregating stuff together. But there are other companies that are really good at different things. One of them that we work with is Redshred, where they are able to take in different documents, they can OCR them to make them searchable, and they can apply AI ML to pull out different pieces and parts of it. And then that feeds into our data aggregation and data visualization platform. It just makes that easy. Also working with companies like Unity that are really big in like the rendering space, or being able to have behaviors and creating twins, creating types of training, and being able to augment the things that we're doing.
I love the focus on, not just channel from sort of a transactional standpoint, as much of a fan of a channel partner as I am, but also from kind of a buy with and through and really driving the community forward. Because what I heard you say, if I were to frame it a little bit different, is this is a great example of sort of a great sort of commercial technology that is able to go drive a lot of the traditional sort of defense industrial base forward by enabling sort of better delivery in some of these programs of record. And it's not a either or decision that government sort of PM or PEO needs to make. It's a way to sort of get that lift at that macro sort of programmatic level. And philosophically, that's a thing we'd probably want more sort of startups and early stage companies or new entrants into the market to be looking for. So, how can we sort of work as a community or a tribe versus, as a whole bunch of, sort of rats competing for the one slice of cheese? So I ran out of a good example. Is that a fair sort of articulation of that?
Wargo, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, no, I definitely think that's definitely a big aspect to it. I think the the biggest barrier we see to working together, some of it's kind of, again, that vulnerability, that trust piece, right? Everyone's always afraid of like, well, how do I monetize this? How do I not give my secret sauce away? Which is fair. I mean, at the end of the day, businesses exist to make money and you can't totally give your business model up. But that's one of the really big things we're trying to do is we have all of these different data formats that, people who are trying to break into the market have to figure out and have to get their hands on. And if we can say, no, 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 here's the visualization layer, you either visualize data in a new way or you contribute something new into the ecosystem, it kind of breaks that problem up and it gives everyone a common language to speak. And then you don't have to do both the providing of the data and the visualization. You can say, hey, I'm a really good AI company and I have lots of really good data. I don't have graphic designers or UI UX people. I don't have a fantastically intuitive interface, but I can push data into this ecosystem. And there's already 20 different ways to visualize it that the customer can pick from. So I definitely think that's a big piece of it as well. I think in the DoD space, the hardest part to actually realizing that vision, which is part of the reason we're partnering with big people, is just that it's so segmented. Like you don't know what the other players are doing. There was a little bit ago that we did a point cloud scan of a ship, and it was like a huge pain in the ass, right? We had to basically get a company that was going to come out with a Google backpack and get them approved to get on base and on pier and on ship to do the point cloud scan. And they only had so much time to do it. So the scans came back and they were really like not great quality. There were people standing in rooms. And one of the things you have to do when you have this like tripod system basically is like you take a whole bunch of scans in different places and then you have to stitch together where they were. And it gets a lot harder to stitch them together when half the doors are closed and you don't know like what's on the other side of that door to line up the point cloud scans with. And it was just a huge pain in the ass. And the long and short of it is that we finished that up, had kind of a mediocre result because we had mediocre data that we were running with. And the end conclusion was, man, this would have been great if we had good data. And I was talking with someone 6 months later. They're like, hey, have you talked with this program office whose literal job it is to point cloud scan defense platforms? And I was like, no one told me they existed. Give me their contact. Then I hit them up and I was like, hey, we just did a point cloud scan of this ship. And it kind of came out not great because we didn't have great data. Do you guys happen to have that? They're like, oh yeah, we get a $500,000 budget every year to buy like top of the end hardware. And we're in-house DoD. So we basically get access wherever we want to go. Here's the really high fidelity scans that would have been great for you. I was like, well, this is fantastic. So we can't fix that problem. And again, that comes back to the culture versus technical solutions. Yep. We have a piece of the technical puzzle. And I hope that we can drive the cultural solution by enabling it, but we're not really in that position to really drive the cultural piece. All we can do is point out there are problems and offer solutions and help people make it the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. That's I think a fantastic exemplar of, some of the challenges of working with like a large, overly bureaucratic sort of industrial age organization is the right hand and the left hand more often than not are not talking, which creates like all sorts of problems, whether that's policy interpretation, whether that's delegated authorities or, local sort of exceptions, whether that's data discoverability or organizational sort of familiarity. But sort of as you guys are looking to the future, right, and sort of abstracting away some of that, maybe that complexity between, programs or providers and the platforms and the data and sort of the art of the possible. This is normally what I ask is sort of the last question. This is the modicum of structure in the podcast here. As you think about if you were king for a day, you could sort of wave a wand and have one thing change, and the change to stick, like it to work, so you don't need the caveat. What's the thing you wave the wand and sort of change, and why? And I'll give each of you a chance to answer because I'm curious to see sort of what each of you think if you want to.
Yeah, I think talking about data, anytime we enter into a different contract, we're always waiting for GFI, like waiting to get the information. And so like the contracting took long enough to do. And now we're in another holding pattern because we don't have the data to get started.
You win the contract and then you're waiting for months on end just for the data to even show up so you can start the work after going through a multi-month, potentially multi-year sort of procurement process.
Exactly. And the only person like losing is the warfighter at that
Absolutely.
point. waiting for these capabilities just because we had to do all the paperwork, and now we have to wait to get that information. So, I mean, if I was king for the day, I would just make that go faster. I understand there's, a process to get the data, but there never seems to be the right point of contact or the right subject matter expert that can point you in the right direction and give you access to that. And it could even just be access where, hey, we're going to give you access to the portal and you guys can pull it down. Ideally, it would be somewhere where we easily do that. But that's always seems to be a blocker. And that ends up really delaying getting the capability to the warfighter.
That's a great answer. Wargo, what do you got, brother?
Yeah, so trying to figure out how to frame this.
This is a safe space. Frame it however you want.
This is going to be good.
That's why I was like, come on.
No, I think it's a very similar line to Z, but I think the biggest thing that would have impact is even just if the Navy or the DoD in general took ownership of their own data. So this is kind of pulling that thread back up one layer. Because quite frankly, we talk with a lot of people, we never get to the contracting phase because they're like, oh, we have this data. Yeah, it's in this computer over here. That's owned by X. Sorry, you can't have it. We can't even have it. So I think that alone would just be a huge amount of impact, even if it's just like they have rights to it and, whatever that entails, but having access to it in the first place and not having all these proprietary data formats on proprietary systems, it's just insane. I worked with an AI company and it sounded like a match made in heaven first. The Navy was like, hey, we have this new boat. We just outfitted it with like 30,000 sensors. We put a sensor on everything we could possibly imagine. And then we're asking the question, what can we do with that data? Which is a little bit backwards, but ignoring that point, they were like, hey, we have 14 terabytes of all of this data from like the past 2 years. I have a brand new upstart AI company who really wants to train an AI. I have data. I have AI experts. This should be a piece of cake. And the problem was that the data they had was in a proprietary format from a major vendor that they were even arguing whether or not the government had rights to see the data, much less know you can't have the magic decoder ring for it. And that's where we kind of stepped in because we had a digital twin and we had a lot of that decoder ring already built. And we were able to step in and say, hey, you have 14 terabytes of data. Here's what it actually looks like in an open format that you guys can actually use. And then it was a match made in heaven and they're off to the races. But just the impact that would happen if the Navy actually owned their own data would be huge. And it seems like such a basic thing. Like if I have people stationed on a ship and they're staking their life for defense of the country, you think they would have full access to the IT systems that are sitting in front of them. And yet they don't. Like, I can't imagine what it's like to be in their shoes because that would just frustrate me to no end. Like if I had a computer system in my house I couldn't access, that would be one thing, much less I'm out here risking my life for you guys and I can't access this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. It's, I mean, there's certainly, to your guys' points, right? There's a ton of both technical debt and also sort of procurement debt that I think we're trying to figure out collectively. How do we either unshackle or, maybe create some type of leap ahead capability that allows us to not be beholden to said debt.